third top trend of the 10, and that's about tech companies, how they've really ruled the roost in the past decade, 2010s. Tech stocks really ruled in 2010s. Just have a look. Global stock market returns, or gains if you'd like to say. Technology shares gained 325% in that decade. Let's have a look at the next one. Consumer goods, way lower, 200%. Financial firms, 100%. Wall Street didn't do too well, huh? And commodities, which used to, we had a decade of commodities, if you remember that chart, just gave returns of 30%. That is really a big change.
Right. And I think that people sort of forget, but if you go back and read all the financial literature from a decade ago, people were saying the opposite.
Really?
Like the consensus was that we are in a commodity super cycle, that commodity prices have to increase. The world has...
Commodities, explain what they are.
Oil, copper, aluminium.
Right.
Those were the hot companies of
right.
the 2000 and 2010, that
right.
decade.
2000 to 2010.
Yes,
correct.
that's right.
Correct.
And now what we have seen is that it's been a complete flip. The same chart in 2010 would have looked the opposite. Commodity companies up 3 to 4 times, and tech firms would have done nothing.
My God.
So churn is the norm, is again the message when you look at the world from an industry perspective.
And in fact, as you were saying, if you look back 10, 15 years ago, you would have said BRICS, that's the future. And just look at what happened to BRICS versus the Fangs. Now, we won't tell you what BRICS and Fangs are, Ruchir will. Well, Fangs are all the tech companies. Fangs, in fact, unpredictably were the new BRICS. Just have a look at the difference between the two. The stock market gains or returns, Fangs gave 634% returns. And BRICS, 37%. BRICS are Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. And Fangs are Facebook, Alphabet,
Netflix,
and
Amazon for A, and G for Google, because now, of course, it's like Alphabet. But in terms of the broad picture here is this, which is that, and we spoke about this, I remember the middle of the decade, that the world loves acronyms. Yeah. And Fangs became the new acronym to define the decade, whereas in the 2000s, it was BRICS. So technology took over, and these emerging markets gave very poor returns over the past decade. So,
and they were the hot topic 15 years ago, right?
Yeah,
BRICS,
10, 15 years ago, as you know, BRICS, and people are coming, all sorts of acronyms linked to new emerging markets. Instead, it's the tech which dominated.
The Fangs, it's a bit kind of nasty, Fangs. Yeah, okay. But one worry you do see in that, and let's have a look at this worry, that tech flourished because they were free of government regulations. And that could change. Anyway, let's have a look how the government regulations have affected different industries. Manufacturing, there are 215,000 government regulations. We're talking about the United States.
Yes.
In finance companies, 128,000 regulations. In media and telecom, 99,000 too many regulations. There should be 0. And in tech, 27,000. So 27,000 compared to 215,000, much more freedom, much more ability for entrepreneurship and development. But you say that may change?
Yeah, because you see the political pressure building now. Yeah. The political pressure is much more about how to regulate these tech firms because of issues with data or issues to do with privacy. So
or
the pressure
monopolies
is
or dominance, etc. Why can't politicians just leave us alone?
But I think that the opposite's also going on, which is very important to say. That especially like in America, there's a lot of deregulation which is also going on over the last few years. In fact, one of the regulations that the business community likes about the Trump administration is that he put into place that for every new regulation you bring, you have to take out 2 others.
I see.
And that's something which I think that even in India, it's worth doing. So it's these other, it's not just about regulating tech, but it's about deregulating the other sectors.
But we have a jugaad system. We'll put in one big regulation, take out 2 tiny ones. But 1:2 ho jayega. Jugaad, the Indian jugaad system.
But a lot of businesses do sort of say that the deregulation is helping the other industries now, whereas tech is facing increased risk of... So
that's true. You do get a lot of pressure to say, you know, they're over dominating particular markets and all kinds of
people even speaking about antitrust laws. So this is a long drawn-out process, but that pressure is building.
Quite right. But you've noticed that big techs are slowing down. It's already happening. If you just have a look at, quite startling how big the slowdown has been. If you look at the last decade, you see growth rates are dropping in terms of number of users, in terms of market share, etc. Just have a look at this. Active users on Facebook are down. The growth rate is down 48%. Now it's at 8%. Snapchat 92%, down to 16% growth rate. These are active users. And Twitter 72% and no growth rate in 2019. That is a worry, big worry.
Yeah. So
of course there is a base issue
effect,
here.
But
you know, they're much smaller at the beginning.
But that's why even the returns get less impressive from here.
Right.
Because you
become
want big,
growth.
you already sort of mature, and so the returns become. So this sort of ties into the earlier point that after a great decade of growth, returns do slow down.
Right. So overall, to summarize in a sentence, the number 3 top 10 of the top 10 trends is this. Number 3 is that the potential fall of big tech. There is a potential that big tech will fall. And that is, everybody's saying tech is the future. So that's quite contra indication for...
Well, tech could still be the future, but the companies that even dominate it are likely to change. And we again go back, that, you know, that list we had earlier seen of the top 10 companies. Back in 1999, at the peak of the tech bubble, just like now, 7 of the 10 largest companies in the world were tech companies. But apart from Microsoft, the other 6 names you are unlikely to even remember, including, you know, like the Ciscos of the world, which were on, like on that list. A lot of them have underperformed since. And Nokia was considered the hottest mobile company.
My God,
until then, and it doesn't feature on any list today at all. So the issue is the fact that it's not just about tech, it's about the companies which dominate today face competitive pressures and obsolescence, and so therefore these lists change. And we've seen that between the 2 tech booms that we have witnessed this decade, this past decade, and the one in the 1990s, how that's changed, with Microsoft being the only survivor.